All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Palantir Weekly. This is episode number 116. I'm here today with the crew, Vince, Dom, and Arnie. Got a lot of stuff we want to talk about today. Let's get into it. Arnie, first of all, how are you doing?
Yeah, doing great. Thank you. Actually, I've been to a sauna and I was thinking, oh, staying in this market is really like dancing. One week we go sideways, 1 week we just go down, and then poof, here we are dancing again, full speed.
Again. There we go. Dom, how are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, well said, Arnie. It's very unpredictable. So for us long-term investors, just enjoy the ride, buy the dips in DCA. But it's been wild these last 2-3 weeks for sure.
I mean, doesn't this makes you question? Because we know that from a fundamental level, things move slow. Typically slower than one expects, slower than one wants. But at the end of the day, when you have these swings, like 10% in a week, it's like if you annualize these variations, it's actually insanity. Like on the way up and on the way down.
100%. Yeah, I mean, our boy Tom Nash said it best. I mean, the media can manipulate and move things very quickly, from driving fear and greed, and institutional money can capture and benefit from that for sure.
Vince, how are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. I'm in my portfolio because I have Palantir and Rocket Lab. It was bleeding for the last few months, and this week I was starting to see 10,000 plus days in the green, and it warmed my heart. It's very good.
They had a good launch, right? On Friday or Thursday?
Yeah, and they always fall after launch, and this was a super complicated launch, and they again fell after this launch, which I just can't get that, but it's just part of being a Rocket Lab shareholder.
Okay. No, Rocket Labs will do well. It might just take some time, but it's going to be another Palantir story for you eventually, you know?
I'm pretty sure. The conviction is higher than when I went in. That's for sure.
That's good.
All right, let's get started for the first topic of the day. This one's an interesting one. Cathie Wood just bought 100,000 shares a couple hours ago. She bought 45,000 shares a couple days ago. Really curious. She hasn't bought Palantir in a long time. I guess this 21 range is what she likes. So let's start off with you, Dom. Any thoughts on her buying before earnings, and kind of do you read into it at all from here?
I think she's playing a different game. I mean, she moves in and out of money so much, so quick. She kind of trades more than invests sometimes. I think at the end of the day, she has her favorites that she'll hold long. But do I think we're going to have a good earnings? Yes. That's why I kept buying and buying and buying. And I realized, I was saying to myself today, I was like, 21, 22, why don't I just go buy some more next week before earnings? Because at the end of the day, we know we're not shooting for just a little bit incremental, but massive in the long run. So why am I squeezing my butt cheeks about a couple of pennies? You know what I mean? Like, just keep doing what you're doing. It's working. Don't get greedy. You know, a lot of people, when Tesla went to 139, some added, some thought they were going to wait till 100. Then sure enough, now what are we at? Like 169. So it's just one of those things. Like, I think just keep your thesis intact and keep adding dollar cost averaging. So I don't read too much into it, but I'm glad. I mean, hey, that moves the share price up.
Vince, thoughts on Cathie buying?
Well, she must be looking at the same thing I'm looking at, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to be buying call options going into this earnings. This period really reminds me and Arnie did an emergency talk before Palantir hits 20, and it was like a few days before earnings that we did aged really well. And I see the same thing, that, you know, we had earnings, we went up 2 green candles, 50% in 2 days. And since then, we've been going sideways or down, whereas I think the company has been executing unbelievable. I think they're going to surprise huge on the upside.
Arnie, your thoughts on Cathie buying?
Well, her buying is a positive signal, but not a relevant information, meaning that the overall purchases are not that huge. Is like less than 1% of a fund overall. So it's like is not really changing the composition of the fund. Yet it is positive to actually see Palantir in this fund, which is ARC-Q. So the one focused on autonomous technology and something else, robotics. And, what I was thinking is, what's the best way to track AI? Like, so far, there is no really an index, a keyword like FANG, all this stuff. And I think sooner or later it will emerge. So I like the information of seeing Palantir actually entering this cluster of robotics, AI, all this stuff, because that's also what helps the recognition from a financial standpoint, so in the market, and also in the grand scheme of things, also the awareness. Palantir is an AI company. Like, I think breaking that barrier after 20 years of them working in the dark could be really beneficial. Like, if you think so far, Palantir has the product. It knows how to distribute it effectively right now. It only needs to be known. So everything that helps in that direction is positive. And in terms of operations, I'm actually very aligned with Cathie. Like I made a bit of trades on my public account, and yesterday I thought, you know what? I've seen the good results from IBM mentioning generative AI. I saw ServiceNow making all the call focus on generative AI, how strong everything is going. Then we had also the big tech pushing in that direction. I thought, you know what? I do it again at the cost of making it wrong, and I switched all the portfolio again to Palantir.
So you're 100% in Palantir.
Yeah, Palantir and cash.
I love it. Yeah, I think that's earnings. We'll do a little bit of a earnings preview in a bit. Today's what? The 26th. So next week is May 4th. Arnie is going to be traveling on May 4th because he's going somewhere. So we'll talk about earnings tonight, and then earnings are on Monday. So in 2 weeks, we have earnings on May 6th. Let's get to this next topic. This next topic was really, really interesting, and I thought it was very exciting. Bloomberg did an entire piece on Palantir in terms of their go-to-market strategy, which is boot camps and AIP boot camps. Did not expect an entire article just on these guys, but that's what we got right here. And it's a pretty damn good article. I think for those who haven't read it, you definitely should read it. The big thing that I thought was interesting here is this idea of network effects and Palantir actually being able to create network effects through their bootcamp strategy. The whole idea is one bootcamp leads to another bootcamp, leads to clients leading their own bootcamp. They've done more than 500 bootcamps this year, or 5 a day so far this year. And it just goes to show that there were a lot of people thinking a lot more deeply around this bootcamp strategy. And as a result of that, I think you got a lot more analysts that started to get bullish. So here's one analyst on CNBC talk for 2 minutes about Palantir. And basically her thesis was based on this Bloomberg article. We're going to listen to this and then we'll discuss the article itself.
Yeah, I mean, Palantir was an AI company before AI was cool. This is without a doubt. I think there's no other software company that has the scale of the military contracts. And I think it's a misunderstood company because that's what most people think it still does. They continue to get big awards from US and US friendly countries. But really what I'm excited and why I bought the stock is what they're doing on the commercial side. They've been doing these within their AI platform, these AI boot camps. Last quarter, that was up 70% year over year. The commercial revenue, just plain and simple, was up 30%. The stock made 3 cents, the earnings 3 cents last quarter. I think this is early days for them. They're hiring a sales team to really go after the commercial traffic. I think that they're so trusted. Their earnings come out at about 9 or 10 days. I think this is one to watch that has a lot more upside.
Let's start off with you, Dom. What was your thoughts on this Bloomberg article for Palantir?
I haven't read it yet, to be honest. I saw you post it, and it's just been a busy week, but it's definitely on my to-do list. I will say she's one of my favorite CNBC analysts because she actually looks at things from a more long-term qualitative approach. She got into it really bad with some dude on Tesla, and she was like, "Just that's great." She was like, "Just admit it. You hate Tesla. You hate Elon. Just stop it." So I I think she gets it, and it's good to, you know, once analysts on TV are starting to say that it's misunderstood, you got to be careful because that big money's going to start swinging in. So like we may be complaining about $22, $23, but you could have an NVIDIA moment a quarter out, whenever it happens. And also now our new low could be 30, 40, you know? So once people start realizing what we've been realizing for 2.5 years, you know, people are going to catch on. So I think that's very important.
Arnie, your thoughts on, let's do Vince first then, Arnie. Vince, your thoughts on the bootcamp article from Bloomberg.
That was also the article where I really strongly started considering call options, because they mentioned that they're doing about 5 boot camps a day. And if I'm assuming because they hold boot camps also on weekend days, so that would be 1,800, over 1,800 boot camps this year. And I think, do you guys think it's reasonable to think that they have 1 close per boot camp? Because I think that that's a very reasonable assumption. I was looking at it yesterday, they're at 221 US commercial customers. And most of these boot camps are for US commercial customers. It even says it in the Bloomberg article that they are aiming for this. So are those 221 customers, are they going to be 2,000 customers by the end of this year? And is the stock only going to be in the 20s? I don't think so.
It's a good point. Arnie, your thoughts on this article?
Well, what Vince said is exactly what gave me the confidence to say, okay, I see people are starting to appreciate Palantir. I think they miscalculate the degree to which they should actually appreciate the company. I think there are different phases. Like first is Palantir is an AI company. Oh, then there's the second phase. Oh, Palantir is a profitable AI company. Wow, that's already tough to have. And then you have the final step. Palantir is so ahead in AI that is even embarrassing for the big tech to compare what Palantir has been doing by unlocking real business value versus the big tech just launching their funny model with ESG bias. And here we have probably the most important sentence after we make five boot camps per day, which is, we can target linear growth. The demand is exponential. This said directly by Palantir guy. And there's another nice spot from Ted Mabray, so the head of commercial. I think he had like his moment of woohoo. It must be exhausting, always rooting for the anti-hero. And he quoted a nice guy that we need to be very thankful with, our dear Rishi. And here the article mentioned there are some analysts that are skeptical because Palantir doesn't really have the salespeople. They say with bootcamp method, it is easier to have it up and running. That's not what we have seen in our checks. I really wonder what he's checking. This is a very complex software. And the conclusion is selling the software through bootcamps is a pipe dream. And on the other side of this equation, you have this segment. After the presentation, Komatsu, mining Clark, says he has been using a Palantir AP since attended an earlier 3-day bootcamp in November. During that event, he saw how other companies were using the software, played around with it, and decided he liked it enough to pitch it to his bosses. Komatsu executive greenlit the use of Palantir's tool with their actual data, so not the pilot, so not fake data. And Clark has been building modules ever since. You can literally do anything with this. And this brought us to what Amit mentioned. Clients happy to make bootcamps with their own partners, which is everything our thesis gravitates around. Once the network of customers is big enough and people know how cool, how fun it can be to unlock new things, that is where you have that Lollapalooza moment where you have high demand, high awareness, high adoption.
I agree, dude. I think that Bootcamp's article was it was really incredible because Rishi in the article, they're quoting him. Bloomberg reached out to, him as like one of the core analysts. And he is one of the core analysts. He's just one of the more bearish analysts. And he says he doesn't believe that Bootcamp's like they're a pipe dream, he said. And it just makes you wonder. It's like, dude, what exactly is going on here? Like, we know that's just not the case. That's just false. And so the article, I think, goes deeper into the fact that this is a way to sell software that hasn't been done before. And it's exciting because this is a company, I think the biggest thing we've been talking about for 2 years is a company that sucked at selling. We all thought we were going to be stuck at $8 for the next decade because these guys couldn't sell. And they figured out how to make selling a part of their moat, go to market a part of their moat. And it's just incredible to see a company transform like that. I mean, you don't get that many times in the stock market.
And from other software companies, it must be so frustrating because they know that they can't really do something like that. They can make an online bootcamp, they can make a very specific bootcamp, but if you don't solve use cases, you can't really have the CEO on the stage talking about how you saved XXXX or XXXX percentages in time. So,
but Arnie, other companies don't need to do this. Snowflake just came out with their own LLM. So
let's get into that. Let's get into that. So this thing was surprising, and I don't want us to potentially get super excited about this if we don't know exactly what it is, because maybe there's a much more deeper argument for what they're doing here. But from what I'm understanding is Snowflake has released an LLM called Arctic. And the idea here is to give a more flexible model to their enterprise clients to use their large language model in order to organize data. I guess we'll start off with you, Dom. Any thoughts on this? Maybe I know you're still looking into it, but
yeah, I wouldn't count them out, right? Like I was thinking about it when they posted recently about this, and with this new CEO saying that really this is the tip of the iceberg for them in what they're offering. I think this is still going to be a good stock and a good company. I did close my position and just poured it into Palantir because I have a higher conviction in Palantir. But I do think there's a lot of use cases for Snowflake that other companies have to still use them for certain functionalities.
Yeah.
And we've seen people from Palantir talk about all the time using co-collaborating solutions like Snowflake, Databricks, other things, AWS. So, good for them. They're innovating. They're trying to figure out where their niche is. I think that makes things stronger for Palantir, especially with partnerships and integrations because it's so open API. And I think what Lunar put in the chat really just sums it up. Like the competitive moat is boot camps cannot be replicated unless you can do the same speed to value in such a short amount of time. You can't compete, period. So until we start seeing people quote other products like what people are saying about Palantir, I'm not too concerned. If anything, I just think it's more integration. Because AIP is not an LLM. AIP enables all the other LLMs. So,
so that's what I'm confused about. Vince, do you have any thoughts there? If AIP is where we think the value is deriving from, but a competitor to Palantir says, no, the LLM is what's going to give people more value. Why do you think they're going that route?
I have no clue. When I saw it, I was like, you guys are lost. It's like LLM is such a commodity. And I was thinking that how brilliant is Palantir that now all these earnings are coming out. And think about this. Palantir is the leading AI company, and all the other AI companies are scrambling to waste all their CapEx at NVIDIA. And they're like increasing their CapEx by billions. And they're rushing to get out the latest LLMs. And, they have engineers working on all this. And then we have Palantir, who is not buying any of the GPUs because, they're agnostic to that. They're not developing their own LLM because they're agnostic to that. And they have this like insanely CapEx light model. They just innovated a little bit on their sales, and they're leaning back and feels like they're taking the whole market. So it just made me appreciate Palantir on a whole new level.
Sorry, I was on mute. Or Dom, you're on mute as well. Go ahead, Dom. We're both on mute. That was funny. Go ahead, Dom.
Raceland said, LLMs without ontology, meh. Yeah, you're exactly right. Like at the end of the day, it took so many years and R&D and thought process and baptism by fire and blood, sweat, and tears to create the ontology and learn what they were actually creating, and then seeing all these use cases. And then, Karp figured out, people are going to need this like 4 or 5 years from now. Like, you just wait. And he was saying it, and we're like, that's pretty bold. That's pretty cocky, saying that you sell software that people don't realize they need.
That's why we love him, to be honest. That's why
honestly, I'm going to say checkmate on that, because in 2-3 years, he's definitely proven that right, that like no one was talking about stuff like this.
No one was talking about the contextual architecture for how data would exist to derive business intelligence from in 2021. It was a lot of other stuff around data, but it wasn't core business intelligence. And now with the use of LLMs, it is only how much more valuable and useful you can be and productive in an organization. And that comes from that comment and ontology reading into an LLM. Arnie, I spoke to some high-level data science people that told me this was a commodity as well. Do you agree, or do you think we're missing something here around this?
You know what happens when you have a very good player in chess, a maestro, and plays with someone else who's not a maestro? What happens? He just wins. Dot. And we know Peter Thiel is nothing a maestro, or even higher, like he is top ranked in the chess. And I think with these moves, we are actually seeing that mentality, that culture of winning that also Sham mentioned in play. And how did they know? Well, I think on one side there is a rationality, but on the other side there's also experience. Palantir has been building these tools already for the army, already from the fact that before LLMs became cool, there were already AI models, mainly targeting models. But if you think of it, the fact that a model is an LLM is just a complication of the fact that you are dealing with multiple models. So if we go back in the past, when we saw Meta Constellation, there was that little sentence, little moment where they say, from the satellites, you have the automatic update of the model, of targeting model, according to the changing situations. So essentially, you have an infrastructure that helps you orchestrate different models given different conditions. Wait a second, that's AAP. So remember, Matt made a video. Look, this AAP is actually something that was already there.
Yeah.
Only it was a different focus and a different name, maybe. But the core idea was exactly the same. I think even internally they thought edge AI models, this stuff would have taken off better. And then with ChatGPT, essentially they took that part and they made it like a full product to capture this AI wave. And now we have been seeing exactly what Karp thought, and he's like, from his position now, he's seeing all the gladiators fighting while he's just there for remaining ones to actually be selected. And the way Palantir can actually help, share the screen a little bit, please. Like this picture shared by Lord Grimm exactly point to that direction. Like, look, this is a catalog of models, and essentially you can switch between a model or the other just with a click. So where's the moat here? Only in the reputation of a brand, on how cool or maybe how specific these models are for specific use cases. And what Snowflake is doing, in my view, is, hey, holy shish, when people say we are not an AI company, let's make what makes us an AI company with hat. Let's take an open source model. Let's pack it a little bit better. Let's maybe simplify it for enterprise uses. And here we go. So I think Snowflake is on the rush of, hey, we want to participate to this run. We're not just a data warehouse company not AI, as the Databricks CEO mentioned. On the other side, I think there is an emergence of this trend of large language models on one side, and these smaller models, models like these enterprise focused from Snowflake. Also, ServiceNow is building its own. Actually, is already open. ServiceNow GPT essentially. Focus again on enterprise models, and it's just a simplified version. Like I talked also with an expert, and he told me, look, you have to consider that these models are very costly. Like large language models are very costly to keep and maintain because it's large. And when
you
you
have to buy
deal
GPUs,
with,
you have to train them. Yeah.
When you have a very specific use case, you want a model that is tailored for that specific use case. Like if if your company makes milk, you want essentially the LLM to be trained on milk, not on all food in the world.
Right. Yeah, I think this is really interesting. The other thing here is like, is this a move of desperation, right? And I don't think that's the case, but they've done 4 acquisitions. They really didn't have an AI play. The street obviously doesn't think they're AI. I mean, the stock has not recovered from the earnings collapse. One could argue that the CEO leaving was enough to have it not recover. I think, going down almost 40% after the CEO leaves is a bit ridiculous, right? So like, what is the street not seeing here when it comes to AI? And maybe creating your own LLM, which is, I think they said a little bit better than Meta's Llama 2, but not the Llama 3 that came out. And like spending all that time and infrastructure, like Google, like Meta tanked this week because they were spending $5 billion more on CapEx, and the street got upset. How much is Snowflake going to spend to, as Arnie said, keep these LLMs trained and ready to go? And like, how much incremental value is that going to bring? I think that's the question here.
Well, consider this thing. Sorry to jump in. Have you seen Musk rising at $6 billion for XAI out of valuation of $18? Okay, yeah. Where all that money is going probably to go to Nvidia again. I'm liking it. So I think we are at the moment where spending a lot on this Nvidia stuff is acceptable. Actually gives you a higher valuation. So it's like from a company standpoint, you know what? It's shareholder money. let's throw it.
Vince, go ahead.
So I just wanted to add to this point where you said, like, is it desperation? Like, we have been nagging on Snow for the lack of innovation. And I just want to say that Amit came out with an LLM model faster than Snow came out with their own LLM model. So
but let's see, like,
to say that.
And when I was building Hobbits, which is hobbits.ai, that's a Palantir LLM I built on a lot of my Palantir content. It was, it didn't take long. Like there's all these, you can train models very easily, but Snowflake's, if they're theoretically managing entire Fortune 500 companies' data, that's a big cost to them at the end of the day. So I don't know why GPT-5 is about to come out. The first H200 Jensen hand delivered to Sam Altman on Tuesday. So like, why would anyone use Llama or LM or Gemini versus GPT-5 when it comes to the powering of your data? I just don't see where the real moat is.
Can we talk about the 2 things that they're executing on that we talked about years ago? One is they are all over the conference grid. I mean, they are. I wrote down here, Greg Little had an awesome interview at the Atlantic. We have the Fed Insider Conference. We had the National AI Security Conference that's coming up May 6th. I mean, there's just like one after another. So people are getting exposed to the technology, and that's only going to continue to grow. And they're getting taken very seriously because anything with actual AI credibility, someone from that company is speaking on behalf of Palantir. So I remember years ago we were saying, hey, get this in people's hands and show them the technology. And now I'm looking here at a post from yesterday. So many posts. How do you guys keep up with all the news? Like I read your guys' stuff to stay on top of it as best I can. But like, for instance, Lord Grimm found one yesterday. Ringier. I remember when they made that customer
media company. Yeah.
Yeah. They had them on a long 5-year contract. And now they're hosting their own boot camps with people.
Wow.
I mean, like
I didn't know that.
when you start getting customers hosting their own boot camps and they're figuring out, hey, if we enable our suppliers and we enable our partners, we're all going to make better gross margins and we're becoming more efficient.
And Palantir gets paid.
Yeah. and so that's one thing. And then the other thing is their focus and maniacal focus on healthcare is coming through wonderfully. I mean,
Well, we'll talk about the new healthcare partnership in a second as well.
Okay, I just said they not only that partnership, but so like the telltale was when I looked at LinkedIn, they had so many postings for healthcare AI FDEs that they're like begging for people to like, hey, come on, like you want to know what we're about because we're changing healthcare, and they have time slots and stuff. So, they're trying to keep up with the demand. Quite frankly, they're trying to keep up with what we talked in last week's episode, the demand.
Real quick, Dom, can you answer this for someone? Because this is something I think a lot of people are wondering. What incentive do other customers have for hosting boot camps on Palantir's behalf?
Sure. I mean, there's always a quid pro quo. I mean, there's definitely, I don't know what the quid pro quo is for Palantir and working with them to scale more customers. But by them either enabling and hosting a boot camp for an internal department or even a partner, like say a third-party partner they work with, if they can be more efficient, then they can lower their prices that they're contracting out and selling to me as the end user. So, it all comes down to margins, right? If you can make it where it's more profitable for someone to do business with someone else, you have a lot more discount flexibility.
Isn't it that most of the customers so far that have held boot camps were these consulting firms that then they are like reselling Palantir and then they get a commission? Or the other one that I have seen is like companies that do it like to their own supply chain, which gives them more visibility into the supply chain, and as Dom said, like better prices and better margins.
I haven't seen a lot of Deloitte or Accenture or PwC. I know the PwC and Accenture are doing them, but I haven't seen like a whole bunch of news around it. I've still seen more of grassroots efforts from Palantir hosting these out. Like they did one in Denver, Colorado, where they had Miller's Ale House and all these other companies of wide, diverse, back verticals. So I'm still seeing them from Palantir themselves. Now what I am seeing more of is the North Slope Technologies, the Ontology.com, Ontologize, all of these former employees that were at Palantir now basically starting their own consulting business for them and helping educate people on being an architect and engineer for Palantir. I am seeing them do a lot more of that stuff.
Arnie?
Well, this conversation brings me to this old stuff that I wrote back in August 2022, so almost 2 years ago, and we are starting to see the effects of Palantir having a client, and then the client interacting closer with other clients, and gradually making everyone part of the network. What's the incentive here? Look, at the end of the day, when you have a company, you are happy if a partner of you with which you have a good relationship actually becomes stronger, but because that also means more business for you. So imagine all the airlines making good money. That makes also Airbus more valuable because they purchase more planes. That's the basic idea. But on the other hand, if you are actually the enabler for these companies, so these partners, to actually make more money, the goodwill you have with them increases a lot. So the marginal probability of a client selecting Airbus over Boeing increases if Airbus helps these airlines making good money, saving cost, and whatever. At a more abstract level, again, we have been seeing what Palantir has always been doing, helping others saving cost, making everything more efficient, so that Palantir has a very strong relationship. Once you have that very strong relationship, yes, you provide software, but you also have a lot of pricing power. Once you unlock 100, you can ask 20, 30 per year. Once you unlock 1 billion, you can ask 10 times that. So everything that helps value to be unlocked actually helps the reputation, and at the end of the day, it also helps Palantir.
Yeah.
All right,
Couldn't
all right, let's end it off on this topic. This was a fun one. I don't fully understand this organization, but I'm digging deeper into them. But it is a healthcare partnership. Paraxel strikes a multi-year deal with Palantir for clinical trial AI. Arnie has a good quote from the article. The software has saved 6 to 7 hours per subject matter expert for each study design and has reduced the time to data delivery by 50%. No financial deals disclosed, but the idea of it is AIP and Foundry are suited to enhance and accelerate the delivery of safe and effective clinical trials and capable of doing so at scale. And this is a CRO, which I didn't really know exactly what a CRO is. It's a contract research organization. Dom, your thoughts on this partnership and what it means for Palantir?
Yeah, CRO is chief revenue officer. So that person is for right there. It says Fierce Biotech CRO. That person is in charge of driving the top line number. Growing the business, growing as fast as possible to meet the numbers, all the while not botching the margins to the point where they're like just losing money hand over fist. So by them being able to deliver better results and saving 6 to 7 hours per subject, that's giving them more subjects to have, which drives revenue up. That's giving them more cost efficiencies, which is driving margins up. And so that's allowing them to really scale and open things up and do things faster, all the while not, sacrificing profitability. Or I won't say profitability, just saying gross margins. We don't know how the business runs. But just another example, the first thing you read was multi-year. People don't normally sign up the first time they partner with someone a multi-year agreement unless they have some faith in what it's already seen and done. So once again, just showing the technology proves itself.
Arnie, your thoughts on this one?
Well, for a little bit of context, my understanding of a CRO, so not the person in charge here, but the company structure, is essentially an outsourcer for discovery. Maybe you have an intuition and you don't want to go through the pain of actually researching and bring a molecule or whatever to the FDA stages. You outsource essentially the research, many parts of these processes to a company like Paraxel. So as a reference, consider it discovery of drugs in outsource. And for them, as Dom said, having the CRO directly talking about Palantir is very powerful because most of IT services, so IT software products, are not competence of CEOs, CROs, and whatever. They are just confined into the IT space. So at most, they are relevant for the chief information officer. Dom, do you agree with this? This is okay. So this is actually a signal saying Palantir does stuff that matter for our company way more than just this is just an IT tool. And for this company, having like a reduction in time for bringing molecules, drugs, whatever, to the clinical process, so the FDA process, is exactly the most important thing for the business, because it means having the opportunity to work with more partners, facilitating everything, which essentially means more revenues, higher probability overall to have successful drugs. Everyone is happy.
And keep in mind, we don't talk about this enough. They do this securely. Everything they do is with security first principles.
Yeah.
Why does that matter? Because then there's no red tape or concern about what they have visibility on, like in clinical trials, as Lunar is talking about. Not everyone should be able to see that data, who that person, that patient is, what data results they have. Are they a part of that project, right? There's what we call in the security industry role-based access. Should you have access to what you're viewing? And I just pulled a post from yesterday. This is actually from Palantir's privacy and ethics Twitter account. And it says they launched a sensitivity data scanner. So it can just scan all the information and tell you quickly social security, employee ID, any kind of thing that you want to put as the query, you can then see in your data sets. And you can see who made the search, who had access to what data. So that goes back really to when the fact that they have the military and that they're winning all these contracts years ago, that already put people's mind at rest and peace with security. And they've just keep pushing that forward. So that's a huge advantage in the commercial space, because there's a lot of companies that, security, they need to really tighten it up. They've been on the news quite a bit.
Vince, your thoughts on this partnership?
I don't have so much thoughts on this. It's another partnership. They're doing great with the sales.
Yeah. I agree. The big thing for me is that healthcare is it's just we don't even talk about NHS anymore, dude. They're managing the whole fucking NHS and we don't talk about it because it's done. It's over. It was a 2-year debacle.
It would be so interesting to get an update on how many % of US beds they.
I think it's 20. I think now it's 20. Right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
But
20.
We have actually a small update from the NHS, which is actually a very good signal that I want to share with you.
I saw your tweet.
Are the kind of information that matter that Wall Street doesn't pay attention to, but we do, because we have amazing guys like Gokar, Palantir on X, who shared this picture. This is John Smith, who's the former data architect lead of the NHS. So someone who knows how things are around. And he mentioned amazing session at Tech UK, so the event where also Palantir participated, regarding the future of data in the NHS. I'm totally and utterly sold on FDP now that I have a much better understanding of what it is, what it isn't, and what it will do for all of us. My main takeaway: why have we spent so much on buying it from Palantir? Because we have spent many times as much trying to build it on our own 5 times in the last 20 years. How I know? Well, I was there for 3 of them. Also, automated visa, I don't know what is there. Take my money now.
Yeah,
this is a common thing in technology where you have this and you'll talk to a customer and their team just wants to build it on their own. And I ran this when I was pitching Palantir to one of the companies I worked at one point, and they're just like, we've been working on this project for 3 years. And my point was my point exactly. Palantir saying they can do it in 3 months. Oh man, that's an awesome quote. I'm glad you shared that, Arnie. That's awesome.
It's going to be exciting. It's going to be very, very exciting. I think this is another healthcare partnership that shows healthcare is going to get cooler.
You got me so bullish. I think I need to add I'm going to try to figure out where I can get some extra savings and just pile in even more next week, because it could be a big shocker.
So let's talk about earnings, because I don't think we're going to have Palantir Weekly next week, guys, because some of us are traveling. So this is the last one before earnings. What are you expecting, Dom, on Monday?
I definitely expect them to minimally just hit their expectation, which I think, what are they calling? 20%, 22% growth?
Yeah, roundabout.
I think they may put up a 30% number. I think there's just so much news that they've had. It's going to make me question. So for instance, also for all the Palantir people on the chat, Palantir released their annual report today on their website. I don't know why it was just I thought we already had the 10K, but I guess there's more in their annual report. So it's 126 pages. It's extremely long. But I downloaded that and I started looking through some things. Some things that caught my eye was in the next 12 months, out of the 1.2 billion they have in performance obligations, 52% of that they're going to capitalize and actually recognize as revenue in the next 12 months, and another 37% after that for the next 13 to 36 months. So what does that tell us? That tells us they have a very strong backlog and they have a very good grip on what to forecast. So if they want to sandbag and then have an NVIDIA moment, they definitely could do that. And with things cooking with the government, business, if it's not this quarter, it's probably going to be next quarter, especially with S&P 500 inclusion on the horizon in June if they get in.
Vince, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to share something because, they have zero incentive to come out to the media and hype their boot camps and how good it is going and like calling it a revolutionary new, sales technique. They have zero incentive to do that because if they come out and they shit the bed on earnings, the stock is going to tank. Okay. And I was looking at, this is my own Palantir model with here is the past quarters and the earnings. And I was looking at what was Palantir's past growth, right? Q1 2021, 49%, Q2, this is this is like the COVID times, right? But in this period when it was 36, 34, 30, they didn't have boot camps. They didn't have any salespeople. They sucked at sales. And then you can see that their growth was slowing to 26, 22, 18, 13. And this seems to be the bottom here, Q2 2023. And if they really discover this revolutionary new sales technique, they guided for 17% growth this quarter. Why would you hype it up that it's all that revolutionary if you're growing at 17%? I just don't buy it. And I think that they're going to come in with either a huge earnings beat or a huge increase on customers, which will signal a future huge earnings beat. And I think with this bootcamp strategy, they should be easily between 30 to 40% growth for a multi-year basis. I would be surprised if they don't announce it this quarter.
I mean, you make a good point. I mean, with all the demand that they've said they've gotten and how exponential it is, if they were to flop this quarter or even just flop in the next one or two and have a slip up, that would be a real red flag for everyone. And so I think eventually they do have to have an aha moment.
Yeah.
Arnie, your thoughts on earnings?
Well, assuming that they are not lying with us, they're saying the demand is exponential, and we have they are not lying on the customers actually getting acquired. But so far, what we have been seeing, especially in the US commercial side, is US commercial clients essentially doubled since the first quarter of 2022. Something like that, while the revenues are up only 50%. So there's a discrepancy from how the business is growing compared with the clients, how they're growing. And we know that the number of clients is the leading indication for how things actually are going, because you buy a customer now and it starts generating very strong revenue growth after 2-3 years. So essentially you get paid 1 million the first year, which is already a success. But then it is after the third, fourth, fifth year when you start seeing the big numbers coming in. So there is this dynamic. Essentially, if we grow 17%, 18%, for me, it doesn't really matter. Apart from maybe the stock rising or dropping, but that would be only noise on my side. What really matters is the direction is strong, and it's going to get stronger with time. If we keep adding on commercial customers, especially from the US, which are the fastest to adopt technology, the ones with the biggest pockets, we know that the revenues would eventually converge to to that 30%. But I think at this point, it's not only a promise, a dream. We are seeing enough substance to actually back it up, which, in my view, is a very important reason. I shared this picture that I think helps us understand what's the context. Because initially, Palantir had very few customers. And we know that these customers essentially started small, but now after more or less 10 years, they've become very big and they account for almost half of business. What happens to the other side? The remaining clients, by definition, were very small when Palantir started, but we know now that there is both the expansion of the remaining clients, so meaning excluding the top 20, while also having more and more customers. And we see from this picture that there was an acceleration of the remaining clients. So it's not only the top 20 keep expanding, they expand that 10-15%, but you have all the other clients that are starting to ramping up faster. So overall, it doesn't really matter, in my view, if we get like 17%, 18%, or 16%, as long as the client adoption is actually very strong. Just a reference, remember that the past growth was not really linear. We had a dip followed by like a spike in the revenues. So the comparison is actually more difficult. That's probably the reason why first we had the guidance for Q4 of around the 20% growth, now 17. I think it is just a numerical factor. So I think what will really wait, since especially it is a growth company, is the confidence they share in the future guidance for the quarter, maybe for the year. And if they keep running bootcamps this fast, we know bootcamps have a lot of conversion compared with traditional methods. As been said, you make 2,000 bootcamps, even if your conversion is like 30%, but still a lot of clients, way more than Palantir is actually acquiring as of today. So how much is it? 5 customer. So we have like 1,200 bootcamps in.
We should be able to add at least 50 customers this quarter, if not more. You know?
So I think that's the idea.
Yeah. All right. This is going to be exciting, guys. Again, we won't be live next week, but Arnie and I will actually be together in person on May 6th. We're going to be
nice. Where are you guys going to be at?
So we're actually going to be at the DC Palantir event. Yeah, it's not really Palantir's event. It's a conference that expo that they're doing in Palantir's one of the people there.
Yeah, so it's the AI expo that Sham's speaking at in CARP.
Correct. I don't know if we get to meet CARP. But
I'm so jealous of you guys. That's what married and having kids. I can't just pick up and go.
We'll obviously post a picture if we meet those guys. But
and send them our love.
100%. I'm sure they all know us, but we'll be covering it live. There's some new demos there that Palantir is going to show off, and we'll get to make some vlogs about it. So we'll post that on the channel, and we'll do the weekly there, and then we'll cover the earnings there as well. So it's going to be fun, May 6th.
Oh man, that's exciting. Take lots of photos. Arnie
will be in America for the first time.
Oh wow!
Ooh.
Pretty cool, right? First time you come to America, you get invited to a Palantir event.
Oh
like,
man,
pretty dope.
Awesome, guys.
All right, thank you, everybody. We will see you
everyone.
on earnings May 6th, and let's see what can happen and what we can do. Have a good one, guys. Appreciate it. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Ciao.